Over the years, psychologists have made some incredible discoveries through very creative and oftentimes highly unethical experiments. Today, we will take a look at a hand-picked selections of 5 of those experiments and their implications for your everyday life. You will learn a lot about the psychology of perception, discipline, willpower, and why making your passion your job might just result in losing your passion. Do you think your perception about the most basic fundamental realities is your own? Well, Dr. Solomon Asch would disagree. His famous study from 1951 was conducted to evaluate how a person's beliefs and opinions are influenced by an opposing group majority. For this purpose, the experimenter showed participants pictures of numbered lines of varying length and asked them to identify the longest one. However, out of those participants, only one was a true participant, while the rest of them were literally paid actors who were told to give a wrong answer. Here comes the surprising part. Only 25% of the participants were consistently able to defy the false group majority, while a mind-boggling 75% of participants yielded. What's more is that participants who conformed to the majority on at least 50% of pictures weren't just subject to group pressure.
Coolness! So we'll see you tomorrow. On Wednesdays, we wear pink.
Even after the experiment, they reported in an interview that the majority group was always right, proving their exposure to what Solomon called a distortion of perception. The only relief for you might be that most of the participants who yielded at least one time in the experiment questioned their own judgment. However, they pushed it away because they weren't sufficiently confident to go against the majority. For your everyday life, that could mean if you're questioning your judgment, try to strengthen it with additional research and soul-searching before giving in to the majority opinion. In another experiment about perception, in 1999, researchers Daniel Simmons and Christopher Chabris gave participants the task to count the numbers of basketball passes in a video. While most of the subjects got the number of basketball passes exactly right, over half of them missed a man walking through the screen, although he wore a full gorilla costume. Not only that, the gorilla was on screen for 9 full seconds and stayed still in the middle of the screen, punning his chest. The psychological phenomenon that was derived from this experiment is called inattentional blindness and means that our attention is focused on the specific task we are engaged in, while we are almost blind to anything else. That not only means that you could miss a turn or another car cutting your lane while you're engaged in a conversation, it also has very important implications for how you are forming your opinions. Think about it this way: if your perceived task is to prove someone wrong in a political or personal argument, you will literally be blind to any information that are at odds with this task. The lesson here is as simple as it is important. The more you are personally engaged in whatever you are doing, the more important it is to take a step back, broaden your horizon, and making sure not to miss the gorilla pounding his chest right in front of you. Taking a step back from perception, the marshmallow test was conducted in 1972 by psychologist Walter Mischel at Stanford University and researched the future success of 600 4- to 6-year-old children with the help of a marshmallow. Sounds weird, but the idea was quite simple. The children were led into a room where a marshmallow was placed in front of them, and the clue that they would receive another marshmallow after 15 minutes if they didn't eat the first one. Only a third of the children managed a near impossible feat, while a minority of kids ate the marshmallow almost immediately. Later studies then found out that children who delayed gratification had better life outcomes in terms of their SAT scores and overall measured competence than their peers who didn't. Now, the reason that I decided to show you this study is not that I hate marshmallows, but to demonstrate the positive feedback loop of delaying gratification. Usually when we make a decision of not eating a snack, not buying a sweater, or not going to a party, we don't have a good enough concept of what that actually means. Not only did we save some money or a couple of pounds, we also trained our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated to controlling behavior, and therefore increased the likelihood of making similarly good decisions in the future, leading towards an overall improved quality of life. Following our trail of food-based experiments, the Radish and Cookie Challenge had participants believe they were signing up for a food tasting challenge and were therefore asked to skip a meal before. The obviously hungry participants were split in 2 different groups and led into a room with a bowl of freshly baked cookies and a bowl of radishes. Group A was told to sample 2 or 3 cookies and Group B had to sample 2 or 3 radishes. After that, the instructor left the room and told the participants not to eat anything from the other bowl, which is obviously a very sophisticated form of torture for poor Group B. After about 5 minutes, the participants were led into a different room where they were given a problem-solving task. However, the researchers left out that the task couldn't be solved because the actual question was how long each participant would persevere. At the end, the participants who were allowed to eat cookies worked on the problems for about 20 minutes, while the other ones left after only 8. Now, the real-life takeaway from this experiment shouldn't be not to exert willpower at all, but to gauge your own level of willpower realistically and try to distribute it throughout the day as efficiently as possible. You should also try to create an environment that doesn't necessitate the use of willpower all the time. That means if you have your cookies in the drawer 2 feet away from your desk, chances are high that you are unnecessarily exerting willpower to resist eating a cookie. In one of the less ethical experiments conducted on humans, psychologist Mark Lepper took a group of children who were intrinsically interested in drawing with pens and split them into 3 groups. The first group was told that they would receive a gold ribbon for continuing to paint, while the second group was not told that they would receive the reward until after they finished. Now, kids from the first group who were told that they would receive a reward for the activity afterwards showed a noticeable decrease in interest for the activity itself. This experiment confirmed the so-called over-justification effect, which is the association of an intrinsically motivated activity with an external reward. The enjoyment of the activity is then associated with the reward rather than the activity itself, so after the reward is withdrawn, the enjoyment is gone as well. Putting aside the obvious relation to receiving grades in school, the gold ribbon experiment has other concrete takeaways for your everyday life as well. If possible, you should avoid to plan a reward for yourself for completing a difficult task, because your brain will automatically assign more dopamine to the expectation of the reward than the completion of the task itself, which will make the task feel a lot more tiresome. Instead, you might try to lean into the completion of the task without a reward, which will make it way less difficult over time. If I missed any important psychological experiments, please let me know in the comments below, and otherwise please leave a like and a subscribe. It would really mean the world to me.